Vegas and the shirt that ruined everything. Hey there, I'm really glad you found your way to this story. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share the video with someone who'd enjoy it. Helps a lot more than you might think. And drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from. Your city, your country, wherever you are. I love seeing just how far these stories travel. Alright, let's get into it. My name's Alyssa, I'm 26, and if I'm being brutally honest, I never thought my life would spiral like this over a stupid trip to Vegas. But here we are. And apparently, I'm now the villain in a story I didn't even ask to be part of. It all started when my boyfriend Mark came home one evening acting like a kid on Christmas. He was hyped about this upcoming bachelor-style trip to Las Vegas that he and his friends were planning for his older brother Ethan. Now, Ethan had just wrapped up a brutal 3-year alimony payment cycle to his ex-wife. He's a dentist, she was a middle school teacher, and due to the income gap, he'd been sending her checks every month since the divorce. The guys were calling it a freedom celebration. Kid you not. Mark kept repeating how Ethan was finally free, and how they were going to make this the most epic celebration ever. But while Mark saw a fun escape, I saw something darker. They weren't just celebrating Ethan's new chapter. They were mocking the woman he left behind. First, I tried to stay neutral. I even joked about how guys always need some excuse to escape to Vegas. But when I really thought about it, I couldn't shake this gross feeling. It wasn't just a guy's trip. It was a parade of bitterness, disguised as fun. Why were they so ecstatic about a woman losing part of her financial support? I voiced my concerns to Mark, but he brushed them off like I was making drama out of nothing. He said Ethan had been struggling and that this trip was about giving him something to look forward to. I argued that celebrating at the expense of someone else's hardship was cruel, but he didn't see it that way. The real breaking point came a few days later. I was using Mark's phone to stream a show while mine charged. A group text notification popped up from his Vegas crew. One of the guys had created a custom t-shirt design. It showed a cartoon version of the Monopoly man pulling out empty pockets, with the words "Alimony Survivor" across the top, and "Finally free to eat real food again" at the bottom. The whole group chat exploded with laughing emojis. They thought it was hilarious. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Here were 12 grown men planning to make a mockery of a woman they'd never met. In public, no less, because she had the nerve to accept what a court had ruled she was owed. When I showed Mark the image, he actually laughed. He thought it was clever, creative. I was shocked. This was the man I loved. The man I planned to spend my future with. Broke down. The fight that followed lasted the entire weekend. I tried explaining how deeply disrespectful it was. Not just to Ethan's ex, but to all women. Mark kept saying it was just a joke and that she'll never see it. But it wasn't about whether she'd see it. It was about the fact that they wanted to humiliate her, even indirectly. I told him it wasn't even about the trip anymore. It was about the way he saw relationships, respect, and basic decency. He claimed I was being too sensitive, that I didn't understand guy humor. That phrase, guy humor, felt like a slap in the face. Since when did cruelty get a free pass because it came with a laugh track? By Monday we were barely speaking. Mark gave me the silent treatment, only breaking it to ask about logistics, groceries, schedules, rent. It was like living with a stranger. Still, I hoped he'd come around. I hoped he'd recognize how much this hurt me. But instead, he doubled down. I told him that if he went on the trip, especially with that shirt theme intact, I'd have to rethink our entire relationship. I wasn't making threats, I was setting boundaries. And instead of respecting that, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'm going. Ethan's my brother. He deserves this." That was it. The clearest message I'd ever received. I wasn't a priority. Empathy wasn't a priority. And apparently, neither was our relationship. Cried. Pleaded. I tried to explain the deeper issue. That this wasn't about Ethan, but about how Mark chose to ignore cruelty as long as it didn't affect him. I begged him to think about the message he was sending. In return, he accused me of being controlling, of trying to sabotage his relationships with his brother and friends, of overreacting. so I stopped trying to reason with him. I reached out to people who might understand. His mom had always been kind to me, so I called her. I told her the truth about the shirt, the party theme, my concerns. She sounded disturbed. Promised she'd speak to him. I talked to a few mutual friends. Most of them were shocked. Some even admitted that the whole Freedom Party vibe felt tone-deaf and petty. A few said, "Wow, I never thought Mark would be into something like that." When Mark found out I'd talked to others, he was livid. He accused me of turning people against him. But honestly, I wasn't trying to destroy him. I just wanted anyone to acknowledge how hurtful this was. The final week before the trip was ice cold. Mark barely spoke to me. He slept on the couch a couple nights. And when I tried one last time to talk, he told me flat out that I needed to worry about myself. That was the last straw. I packed a bag and stayed with a friend. I needed space to think, to breathe, to feel heard. I didn't want to be with someone who laughed at cruelty, who dismissed every serious concern as an emotional overreaction. Mark went to Vegas. They wore the shirts. I saw the photos online. I blocked him that night. It's been 3 weeks. I still don't regret walking away. If someone shows you who they are when it matters most, believe them. Jealousy didn't break us. A shirt did. A joke did. A refusal to see beyond his own ego did. And in the end, that says more than any apology ever could.